As you guys already know, for months now I have been looking into theories and lore on tons of massive and recognizable game series, ranging from Elder Scrolls, Elden Ring, and Fallout, to Minecraft, Cyberpunk, and Subnautica. And after countless hours now researching a variety of games and their deepest secrets, I think I may have just found the most insane one yet. You see, back in 2011, 2 years before Destiny originally released, a video was posted on YouTube by user JoyUse7. The video in question, titled Letting Go, spans for exactly a minute and contains many strange sounds and symbols along with a handful of disturbing imagery. For anyone that has been on the internet for some time though, you know that unsettling and cryptic videos like this are anything but rare, with entire YouTube channels dedicated to analyzing them. Where this specific story gets crazy though, is just how many weird and coincidental connections it actually makes to the Destiny universe, before the Destiny universe even existed. Right at the start, we can see the Destiny logo. And while that sounds weird at first, considering the game was 2 years away at this point, it wouldn't have been that hard to fake, considering the logo and name were already trademarked at the time, and players knew that Bungie's next game after Halo was coming and would be set in a sci-fi universe. Where it starts to get really crazy though, is when we see this strange figure that looks like a puppet of sorts with a body of text beneath. First of all, that puppet figure almost resembles the body of a guardian we find in Glycan in-game, but that isn't enough to go off of on its own. The actual body of text is where we start to find some smoking guns. I used to be so joyful. Once upon a time, no one fought over me. Then the bombs started falling, and the people started dying, and I wept. For the first time, I wept. Now I stand at a precipice. Chained though I may be, I have had an awakening. A light came to me from the darkness. A light that told me I had meaning. I am more than a tool, a sword you wield when you're afraid. I am the eldritch glow that surrounds all things. I am the virgin queen from whom all was born. I am the gear that turns the heart of the Nexus. And for the first time in a long time, I am happy, because I am going to destroy you. All of you. Immediately, this text stands out because it reads as if Rasputin is speaking, or potentially even an entity we haven't spoken to yet, like the Traveler. We can hear that, "A light came to me from the darkness," which is exactly what the main themes of Destiny have been about for almost a decade now. And we can also see other peculiar references like, "I am the Virgin Queen from whom all was born," which could be a reference to Savathun the Witch Queen and the moment in which she spawned the birth of the Hive through the Worm Gods. But even more damning is the line, "I am more than a tool, a sword you wield when you're afraid." Because if you recall, the channel that posted this creepy video was called JoyUse7. And for those of you that don't know, JoyUse is actually the name of Charlemagne's sword that he trusted in battle and won many victories with. Charlemagne was a renowned and great Holy Roman Emperor almost 2,000 years ago in our real world. But even more interestingly, it's also the name of one of the great mega powerful Warmind AIs in Destiny's lore, which is eventually overtaken and controlled by Rasputin. So could it be that this mysterious video and its creator knew something we didn't? Could it be that this is actually the first piece of content about Destiny and its story and themes ever posted that most people don't know about? Because if that's the case, the other messages in this video about combining into one and bringing upon death would perfectly tie into where the story is currently heading in Destiny, and could potentially mean that this video was originally an ARG created by Bungie that was later abandoned or left dormant until some time in the future. The bad news is, the original poster as well as Bungie themselves have come out and said that this post is fake and has nothing to do with the game, so it would seem that the case is closed there. And while that is where I would end most theories, something about this post just feels so off. There are way too many coincidences, including a multitude of other finds, like some in the community who have claimed to decode parts of the ciphertext that lists the names of important characters that have died, like Cayde 6. And on top of this, the name, themes, and just everything about the video seems almost too perfect or too good to be true. In other strange finds like this for other games I've looked into, there's always an easy explanation the further you look into it, and it seems more and more fake the more research you do. But this is the first time where the deeper you look into this strange video, the more real it seems to become. On top of this, if it really was fake, why has the creator not followed up or made any other strange videos? You would think if you made such a lucky, educated guess the first time, you would try and follow it up to gain some amount of fame or notoriety. That is, unless that original post you made was part of a marketing campaign you were being paid for. All in all though, the most likely answer is this video is just fake, and the creator happened to make a lot of lucky guesses and creepy coincidences based on knowledge of Bungie's lore structure from their previous games. But if there ever was a strange and disturbing online video that actually turned out to be more than just a hoax, it's this one. The Hive and Destiny are probably the most interesting foe we face, only potentially behind the Vex if we ever do explore and find out more about them. In the Hive's case though, we've actually gotten to see a good amount of backstory and lore unfold in multiple expansions now, most notably the Witch Queen, and it's become clear that the Hive are more than just mindless husks. They have their own cultures, writing, speech, and rich and deep history that spans now millions of years of evolution. One of the lesser known and fascinating finds though is that the Hive actually has a complex and hyper-advanced language of their own. Scattered across many of their ruins and outposts, players can find what are called Hive runes that are used by them to communicate amongst one another and, even more interestingly, also bring about change in the world. If we have our ghost scan one of the ruins in game, we get a little bit of flavor text on this issue. Hive runes draw their power from a different dimension, where there's no difference between a word and its meaning. When a hive erode the barrier between our dimension and theirs, the rune of death brings literal death. So it seems clear that these symbols in the Hive language, for that matter, have the ability to affect the world in some way, and thus through Hive speech and language, actual and fundamental changes in the universe can occur. And this has led some in the community to make another enticing find. A lot of these Hive symbols in their language have a very similar structure to Feynman diagrams. For those that don't know, Feynman diagrams are an illustration that represent mathematical wave expressions for calculating scattering amplitudes that describe the behavior of subatomic particles. For example, a common diagram to represent Feynman's work is a model of an electron's path as they produce photons that collide with one another. These diagrams are the result of complex and rigid mathematics, but are meant to be an easy to understand function to the universe. At their core, they paint a picture of the fundamental forces at play within our galaxy and are a language of the stars in a way. Taking a closer look at these diagrams though, it becomes increasingly clear that many of the Hive symbols we find in game have a very coincidentally similar look. Could this mean that this ultra-futuristic language that the Hive have developed that has the power to literally cause death upon its creation is actually nothing more than advanced Feynman diagrams that have unlocked the secrets to our universe? It's a fascinating thing to think about and shows that the Hive and their societal structures and thought processes may not be all that different from humans after all. Back in Destiny 1, there was a rare Titan exotic called the Ruin Wings, and in their descriptions, players were met with this. In the garden grows a tree of silver wings. The leaves are ruin, the bark disaster, of the seeds we do not speak. And this description left a lot in the community wondering what exactly this tree of silver wings was, as it seemed obvious Bungie was starting to set something big up. And lo and behold, slowly over the years, the Tree of Silver Wings has grown into one of the biggest mysteries in all of Destiny. The puzzle first started heating up in Destiny 2 though, with a new rare armor drop that was housing some new information on the elusive and now famous tree. The tree in the garden with silver wings. The air around it is oppressive and inspires violence in those who even breathe it in. Shards of the disastrous bark peel from it and litter the ground, and nothing grows in its shadow. It scintillates faintly at dusk. It has achieved its entelechy with every body falling, every civilization laid to waste, every leaf forged into instrument of ruin. This lore entry made it clear that the Tree of Silver Wings was a force unlike anything we have seen, that was no ally of the light or dark, but rather some sort of amalgamation of both. The tree itself is a catalyst for chaos and violence, and from the sounds of it, inspires death and destruction in its wake. But as to what the tree itself really is, we find more answers in the Unveiling lore books, which is a set of extensive dives into the creation myths of the Destiny universe. And in one of these novels, we learn about something called the Flower Game, which is said to be an analogy to the origins of life, like Adam and Eve in the Bible. And in this entry, we learn about the Winnower and the Gardener, who are commonly thought to be the darkness and the traveler themselves. And here they lay in a garden at the birth of the galaxy, and in this garden lies a tree of silver wings. So the Tree of Silver Wings then is something that has existed since the dawn of time in Destiny, and is seemingly as old and likely as important as good and evil in the universe. We know from some lore entries from Eris as well that a second tree has taken form, and from it the Guardians have retrieved a seed of the majestic tree for further study, and this seed will likely be a key lore point to Destiny as the story progresses in the future. The seed seems to have properties of both the dark and the light, and it feeds off the energy of wherever it is planted and consumes everything completely, forming into an entirely new tree each time. Even more interestingly too, the tree also bears a striking resemblance to the Lumina weapon in-game, which was said to be a piece of darkness petrified in light, another reference to a being that is a combination of both light and dark. And this is where the really crazy theories start to pop up. Because you see, while we still don't know exactly what the Tree of Silver Wings is, we do have an in-game conspiracy theorist called Ulan Tan who has some interesting things to say. Ulan has been shouting what many in the Destiny community thought was nonsense for some time now, but with each expansion, many of his foreshadowings and fear-mongering of the light and dark being one force and how one cannot exist without the other have slowly been coming true. I propose a simple experiment. Look around. You see light. You see darkness. There could not be one without the other. They are two sides of the same coin. If it is true for those Newtonian echoes, why would it not be true of the purest paracausal forms? Therefore, I conclude, the reason you persecute me is not because of the symmetry, it's because of the truth beyond the truth which you most dread. If we could destroy darkness, but we would have to give up our light to do so, how many of us would make that trade? So if these radical thoughts from Ulan are in fact facts, could it be that the Tree of Silver Wings is some sort of parasitic life form that is feeding off the essence of the dark and the light itself? We know from the Destiny creation myths that the world was seemingly set on a path to a final form from its creation, coincidentally the name of the final announced DLC for the first Destiny saga, and this form would likely be one without dark or light. So if Ulan's predictions come true, could defeating the Witness and the Darkness as the Guardians actually also bring about the downfall of the Traveler and the Light as well? And with this downfall, what would actually happen? What or who would fill the vacuum of power that was now evaporated? What if that force was the Tree of Silver Wings, a tree that is harnessing something menacing and horrific inside, as we know from countless lore entries that seem to feed off light and dark, and was a fundamental character from the beginning of time and space in the Destiny universe itself? What if the dark and light in the Destiny universe were both actually forces for good in their own way, an analogy to yin and yang on their own, and the true and purest form of evil was actually being held at bay? What if the Tree of Silver Wings was feeding off the forces of light and dark, but in their absence would have to find a new source of food, and in a world without light and dark, the Guardians may be the next best bet? Could the Tree of Silver Wings actually be the catalyst for the next entire saga and decade of Destiny that was hiding in plain sight the whole time? Time will tell for sure, but either way, the Tree of Silver Wings is truly one of the most bewildering pieces of lore in the entire Destiny universe. It should be clear by now that the golden age of humanity in Destiny marks some of the most prosperous times our species has ever seen. For the first time, we conquered the stars, built massive structures we only could dream of before, and entered into a new dawn of human evolution thanks to the arrival of the Traveler. But along with these advancements came many military operations as well. And one of the most effectual of all of these was the development of a super machine artificial intelligence codenamed Rasputin. Originally developed in a top-secret Clovis Bray research facility, Rasputin was birthed with the specific intention of protecting humanity at all costs. His prime directive as a machine was to ensure the survival of the human race no matter what it took, and thus Rasputin was given express control of many high-grade military munitions and fissile material. But the most interesting part about Rasputin was just how advanced he was. At some point during his development, Rasputin's codebase became so complex that even his creators lost a fundamental understanding of him, and Rasputin even began to develop himself further as well, a machine making a machine. And this extraordinary mind that was Rasputin was only given more power and free will because of many risky decisions the engineers on the project made to give Rasputin less barriers. Here's just one of the many entries in-game from his creation that proves this point. The engineers of Clovis Bray conceived a solution during the development of our Warmind project. By relegating ethical decision-making to a black box morality system, the Warmind instruments its own proprietary virtual quantifiers incomprehensible to even its own creators. Rasputin determines morality on its own terms, and by design we are blind to that process in order to preserve its objectivity. Rasputin in many ways was the greatest and most advanced creation in humanity's history, and that gambit, well, it ended up paying off. Because Rasputin was what actually originally detected the darkness at the edge of the solar system that was making its way to Earth due to the Traveler's presence. The only reason we even had the forewarning and foresight we did about the coming doom was directly through Rasputin's actions. But after detecting the darkness, something unbelievable happened. Rasputin ran countless simulations and determined in every circumstance there was a 100% chance that humanity was doomed to become extinct in the coming Armageddon. So Rasputin did the unthinkable. He took immediate control of the majority of humanity's advanced weapon systems across every planet, and implemented and initiated his own protocol codenamed Midnight EXIGENT. In an instant, Rasputin abandoned his prime directive to protect humanity and instead went dark, sending himself and all forces, including the other less powerful war minds under his control, into a complete blackout so that humanity had no control of the systems. This resulted in countless human lives lost as the darkness began its slow invasion into the solar system. And unbeknownst to the other war minds and the now dark state, Rasputin was devising another insane idea, called the abhorrent imperative. Because Rasputin had determined there was no way to conventionally save humanity, this imperative was a last-ditch effort that was devised should humanity ever be threatened by extinction. Rasputin would fire all weaponry at the Traveler, thus forcing it to stay and defend Earth against the darkness, instead of leaving us like the Traveler did to so many past civilizations like the Elixni. The thing is, in Destiny's lore, it's widely assumed that this abhorrent imperative never actually took place. Instead, the Traveler decommissioned itself in order to push the darkness back. But what if that wasn't the case? What if this insane plan hatched by Rasputin did in fact occur, and the Traveler is only still sitting over Earth because Rasputin himself fired upon it? After all, we know from many lore entries in-game that there was a massive and blinding flash before the Traveler turned off, and no one knows what it actually was. This would mean that the biggest event in the Destiny universe so far was actually the result not of some mysterious forces of light and dark, but rather the most intelligent artificial intelligence humanity has ever made. Could it be that Rasputin discovered something we don't know about, or has a plan so big and with so many moving pieces that everything we are experiencing is actually a plan of his own devices? You see, Rasputin has more than just smarts as well. We know he has control of Siva, for example, which he unleashed on the Iron Lords, and we also know he has interfaced with some of the most ancient and intelligent beings in the universe, like the Vex. And keep in mind, the Vex are known for their ability to predict and model the future perfectly. Surely Rasputin could have achieved this ability as well. So could it be that Rasputin is building an entire model of the universe in his head, and has determined that there is only one single option to preserve the human species, the journey we are going on now in Destiny? Something surely is up with Rasputin, but the scariest part is we don't know what this means. After all, we can even clearly see from other war minds that Rasputin is something different at this point, something completely outside the realm of even just a machine. In many lore entries all over the game, we hear about how there is one robot that is different than the others, like the Sun Death Shotgun's lore tab, which reads, "You spoke with the deep orbit minds. We heard what you asked, but they had questions too. The lying robot no longer lies with others. Where is he?" This small lore entry is likely a conversation between the Nine and an unknown set of entities called the Deep Minds, who are seemingly holding immense power. So it is especially concerning that even the most powerful forces in the galaxy, like the Light and the Traveler, the Darkness, the Nine, and now the Deep Orbit Minds, all have a huge concern with Rasputin. Could it be that the biggest threat all along isn't something outside the Milky Way or another alien species out to harm us, but rather a man-made machine that was meant to do nothing but protect us? The scariest revelation of all is that Rasputin may have determined the only way to save humanity is to destroy them. Either way though, Rasputin knows more about what is really going on than we could ever imagine, and my guess is he is about to play a very pivotal role in the content we will see in Destiny for the next decade. You know, Destiny never really had a main character. Technically in lore you are a guardian just like all the others, and while there are influential figures, no one is at the center of everything. Except for maybe Rasputin. a being beyond our wildest conception that may just be the crux of everything in the Destiny universe.